Hi, gentlemen. First things first, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Very well.
Very good to hear. So before we get into the music and the last couple of years, do you recall the first meeting between the two of you?
Two of us. I think Justin does.
Yeah, Freddie doesn't. I remember meeting him in a bar in South Kensington. I get longer than 10 years ago now. Yeah, very briefly.
I was an extremely overconfident teenager. So.
Yeah, what was your impression of him?
I thought he was overly confident. Overconfident is a euphemistic way of putting it.
It's a nice way of saying it. Yeah.
He was very sure of himself.
Cocky.
I remember him.
Yeah.
And you say it's a short meeting, so did you know about each other, that you were making music or into music?
No, I think the next time we met was a mutual friend of ours was playing guitar with Freddie, and then he sort of explained him, and I said, oh, I met him, so he like contextualized him. So I didn't know. I don't think he certainly didn't know about me, and I'd forgotten about him kind of.
But it was a very different time. I think you kind of. Or certainly I, as like a young teenager, just so full of confidence and so sure of yourself, and then you kind of encounter the world and all its pitfalls and realities, and you're a bit humbled by it. So I think the next time we met, it was quite a different person.
And was it then or soon after that you thought, well, there's a chance
then.
to... Oh, okay.
It was then. But I actually wasn't that interested in the idea. You know, it just goes to show that you don't know what's good for you. You know, thank God you don't get to make your own choices.
What pushed you over the edge then? What made you go for it?
I didn't really have a choice. I was struggling to be a musician for a really long time, for my teenage years, and I just got like my first kind of reliable job playing guitar for someone. And that person decided he wanted to then go and stop doing that and start a band. And so for me, ironically, it felt like it was going back to square one, you know, and I'd been through that and I didn't want to go through that again, so I was reluctant that my option was removed, and, you know, luckily, thank God, we started making music together.
And what was your impression, both personally and musically, your impression of Justin?
Musically, we shared the same, I think we liked the same things about music. We were interested not necessarily in exactly the same music, but the same things about that music was engaging and attractive to us.
We definitely met each other at the right time. I think it was like synergy, like, you know, call it what you will, like a connection or whatever, but there was definitely there was some like synergy there, and it was like pretty soon, pretty quickly, it was like we were pretty pleased with what we were making, and we weren't really fighting each other on it. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, it was like, this sounds good, right? And you'd be like, yeah, it does kind of sound good. So it was quite, those kind of early moments were pretty like easy and effortless and fun. So I think that that's always a good sign, I guess.
And we had quite a lot of desperation and also kind of no plan Bs, or we met each other at the right time, that we didn't have anything else going on, no options. So all we really had was 100% into what we were doing. You know, there was nothing else for us to be involved in. So.
With that thought in mind then, because, well, I don't have time to go through the whole band's history, but in the last 2 years, you did go through a more difficult period. And how close then were you to actually calling it quits, with what you just said in mind, that this was the thing that we wanted to do? We had no plan B.
Ironically, I think despite the title of the album and the kind of the rhetoric that's come from it, actually the last 2 years, or the 2 years we spent making Combat Sports, was really about us kind of coming together as a band, learning to love being in a band together again, and also by getting 2 new members, just establishing a much healthier balance in the group. So it wasn't really a period of separation. It was a kind of, it was a coming together.
I haven't wanted to really pull the red cord for a long time.
No.
Yeah.
No, because of that, I did read some articles that were.
I think that was
a
kind
moment.
of narrative. Yeah. But no, I think you sort of I don't know. I feel a lot sort of more relaxed about the whole thing the older we get. So I don't. Yeah. I don't think that was ever a serious. Certainly not for me. I never went. You know, there's an element, I think, at least. Well, not. That's the thing. Is I suppose you assume there's an element of kind of unconditional kind of love for what you do. I suppose that's not the case. Otherwise, bands wouldn't break up. Sure. So even if you're wanting to like punch each other's lights out or like scream at each other at the top of your lungs. For me, at least, there's always an understanding that like that's like a momentary thing, and that like nothing's worth more than the band. But like, of course, if that was a universal truth, like I say, people wouldn't leave bands and break up and all that sort of stuff. So.
I think that's just part of what I've experienced as growing up a bit and maturing, is that no matter, you have better perspective over difficult times.
Right.
So you might say, you know what, I really don't fucking feel like being here today. I want to go home. And maybe when you're a bit younger, you're like, I just want to go home, I don't want to do this. But you know that in 2 months, 3 months, you'll be dying to go out again. So you have to really take a wider view of your emotional states, because they're not accurate for a long period, you know?
Right.
You see that with certain people that quit touring, and then they're out touring, they're like, I'm not doing this anymore, and it happens all the time. And then 3 months later, they're like at home and they're desperate to go out again.
And so especially on this album then, because, you say that the divide wasn't as big as it was made out to be. That synergy, Justin, that you mentioned, how did that work on this album? Because I believe on the previous one, you were. I read somewhere that you were more confused after making it than.
I think that's what pressure. I think that's what pressure does to you when you. I mean, like, you know, for the first sort of 18 months of this band's life, like the eyes of the music world were very much on everything we did, and I think like whether that was like in a positive light or negative light, people were watching us. And I think that created like a huge amount of pressure, certainly on me, I think on the others too. And like I remember like going to band practices for the second album, and you know, we'd spend like hours with me trying to explain to the drummer like how I wanted like the kick pattern to like sound on a certain song or something, which like for me now sounds like insane, but like that's what like the pressure did to me at least. And I think that like now the kind of, you know, there's a bit more of a sort of culture around the band of like celebrate or ignore. Like we've got our fan base and we can come here and we can play to, you know, our fans at Lowlands or whatever. But you know, the eyes of the world are on Billie Eilish or whatever. And so I don't know. I just feel like there's like less pressure now, and we can just, I don't know, decisions feel like less consequential. So the market can be a lot more kind of closer to like, do we like this? Do we feel fulfilled by this? Rather than like, what's the rest of the world going to think? I think.
Is it part of just general maturation as well? Because one thing I've noticed, I think I'm about the same age as you guys, and I noticed that with myself and my friends as well. That you kind of just what you talked about. Just
I think probably I've been really interested how people change around the age of 30, and I'm guessing that like in the grand scheme of things, scheme of human history, 40 is probably a good average age. So I reckon 30 is like is what kind of maybe 60 or 70 is now, at least physically. So I think you do go through really big changes about things, and you gain, like I said, you gain a better perspective and enjoy things a bit more.
And in that sense, because everything that happened, the lineup changes, do you feel the band is very much a lot stronger than it was?
Yeah, definitely. I do. I really do. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's difficult for me to. Things are much more effortless now, but it doesn't mean they're not stronger or not better. And I listen to some of the older stuff we did that we really went through a lot of pain to create. And I don't think it's any better than the stuff that comes when you're quite light and move more effortlessly. I think it's more positivity. I think it's a much better fuel for things than fear, negativity.
And I imagine that's one of the things, especially for young musicians, you think that pain is necessary or a certain mental state is necessary to do that.
Yeah. I think it's important not to propagate that, because I think it's dangerous. I think it does actually harm a lot of people, you know. So you've got to be this certain way or do these certain things.
If we were making records in the same way as Radiohead were, then maybe you'd be looking to labour over every like sound and sight and whatever it may be. But like, you know, what captured people's hearts and minds about us was this like energy and this spirit, and I think you can easily kind of, you know, pour water on that fire if you're not careful.
And so with that in mind, because one thing that I kind of got from reading up on you a little bit is the emphasis on playing live now, the kind of that feeling which you just mentioned. So what is it like these days to step out in a couple hours? I think you'll go on stage. What is it like that kind of moment stepping out on stage and?
It's very liberating because, like personally, I love probably above doing anything else as myself is playing guitar, and it's completely removes you from your everything else in your life in a really positive way. So it's
very, like,
kind of transcendent experience for yourself.
It's all encompassing. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like sick or sad or tired. It's like weird. Even if for the first 20 minutes you might kind of like be in your head about something else, like definitely by the end you get to a point where you feel invincible. In a weird way, even if you don't necessarily, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's sort of like, it's like nothing else.
Because it requires, it's like all sensory. It requires all your senses and all your, naturally it gives you have all this energy focused at you, and you become a vessel for all that energy, and so your brain just, all that other noise just kind of switches off a bit.
One thing I always ask is it a conscious thing? Are you very aware of what's happening? Or,
at times, I think, and at times not.
Just try and be present, but not too self-conscious. It's kind of
find
a
that
bit
flow state.
paradox, but it's quite natural.
Well, I hope you achieve it today again.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thanks,
guys. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.